It looks like it's recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the May 25th edition of the SIG Network meeting. We have a few things on our agenda for today, but this meeting, as always, is governed by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct. This boils down effectively to be nice to one another, and also, if in general, when conversations are happening, if you could try to use the Zoom raise your hand feature, that's very helpful for us to keep the conversation flowing. We have a few items on the agenda today. It is an open agenda. There's not tons of stuff on there. If you have something that you'd like to add, please do feel free to add it now while we're talking or while we're going through some of the other agenda items. Otherwise, we're going to start off with triage and then get into our agenda. I'll share my screen here. I think. Is it working? Do you guys see the agenda doc?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. So we'll start off with triage. I've opened up the issues that are in triage but don't have an assignee yet. We can also go through some of the ones that do have an assignee if there's anything to go over. But I at least thought we'd prioritize the ones that weren't assigned. So, all right. Network readiness for index job plus headless service depends on presence of pod. Let's see if anybody's taken a look at this one already.
Yeah, this one, it seems to be mostly linked to GKE. So I did a little bit of digging and then handed off to one of the GKE folks who's digging further.
Oh, okay. Didn't catch that part yet.
Sorry, I don't think I assigned the issue.
Okay. All right. Tim's got this one in hand. Thank you. Let's focus then on the next one. Dan, generic versus platform backend specific options in kube proxy. Okay. There was discussion in 117.297.
So this is basically, I just filed it to get discussion. So people who have opinions on kube proxy command line options and or config file should go there and comment. Specifically, this started about the fact that some of the stuff is not really divided up well for Linux versus Windows and IP tables versus IPVS versus WinKernel. But there's another issue open right now where there's discussion about the whole, well, we shouldn't be deprecating the command line options if the config file is only alpha anyway. And maybe it's time we make the config file be beta. So anyway, people should discuss.
But your proposal is to be beta and do all the changes.
I don't know.
but you have something in mind. Just share it.
Well, no, I mean, I have a bunch of questions there. Like I said, I wanted discussion here.
Okay.
All right, so open discussion, basically, Dan has gone through and identified places in the configuration that could be improved, changed, or otherwise have issues like they don't really make as much sense in one operating system that we support versus another. Also, maybe we need to get off of the alpha and start saying that we're beta, at least. I think that's a good discussion to have. I'll join in on the discussion here. Anybody else that wants to join in on that discussion? That's 117.909. And then, yeah, I'll try to help facilitate this discussion a little bit. So I'll sign myself for the purposes of to pull people in and facilitate. Cool. Thank you, Dan. Kube proxy. Remove log warning about not using config file. Okay. So, remove log warning about.
Yeah, this came out of another issue where somebody is trying to add the new fancy alpha logging stuff, and Gordon complained that we should not be telling people that the command line options are deprecated if the config file is only v1 alpha 1. So.
Okay. All right. So what does anybody want to take that and try to drive that one forward? like what's needed here, do you think? Because I'm thinking about it.
I mean, unless you actually want to beta-ify the config file, we need to change the warning to clarify the overriding behavior when you specify both, but not declare the command line to be deprecated.
Roger that. Does anybody want to try to take that one on and move that one forward? If not, I'll kind of bookmark that one for myself and see. It's fairly cut and dry. Just need somebody to work on it. I'll take a look at it after this. We don't need to hold it up if nobody wants to jump in there. Okie doke. So I'll follow up on that last one. Next one, use IP sets and IP tables proxier. Looks like Dan, you're taking a look at this one.
Yeah, you can untriage that and assign it to me, I guess.
Are we going to keep it, Dan? It sounded like your rationale made sense to me for why this isn't really worth pursuing. Should we
Okay,
just-
so maybe close it.
I mean, look, it's your call.
I'm not going to pursue it. And I
if
would
somebody's-
discourage anyone else from doing it. But if somebody actually implemented it,
If somebody sent you a pull request to add IP set, or somebody sent you a KEP, even better, to add IP set support to the IP tables proxier, do you think it would be a good use of your time and the community's time to review it, think about it, add another feature gate, and
No.
roll it out? Then you should probably just knack it and close it.
Yeah, so the context, that makes sense to me. The context here is, I think Damon is kind of, what's the right word? He's been rapidly ramping up from the KPNG project into Entry. And the fact that he created this makes me wonder if he would do it, because he's been very hungry to do these sort of things. So just to be clear, we generally don't think it's worth the time of the community to do this. But if somebody was really hungry to do this, it would only be a benefit. Is that the case that we're in?
no,
Even if-
it would
okay.
not be an unambiguous benefit because one, we would need to spend time reviewing the code, and two, by the time it reached GA, the NF tables proxy might be at least alpha, if not beta. So I've actually talked to Damon on Slack and encouraged him to work on other things and pointed out a bunch of other things that he could work on that maybe.
Okay.
So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. I've loved his enthusiasm recently. So I
Yeah.
can take this one forward actually and just kind of go with the very nicely explaining kind of our reasoning and closing this one if you want.
okay.
I'm
And
fine.
I 1000% support folks who are interested in getting involved in bigger ways, right? Like Damon's been involved enough that I recognize the name, which is, at least a signal that he's been around. I would love to find ways to harness enthusiasm that we are all agreeing or aligned with the directional side of things. So however we can do that, like I'm here to
Yeah.
help too.
Yeah. But if it's not aligned with the direction, yeah, I think that it makes sense to say thank you, but I don't think we're going to want to do this one. So that's cool. All right, a couple more. CNI networking errors leave node marked ready but unusable. Nobody's taken a look at this one yet. That was last week. When using a CNI, for example, Azure, it may fail. Even if the plugin correctly reports errors back, the node is still marked ready, but it's unusable. If the node were not marked ready, the autoscaler could heal.
You can assign to me. I've been going through this week. The CNI and the kubelet and all this stuff.
Gotcha.
So basically, if
I think I get it. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, this is the kubelet CNI relation that is under specified. It's complex.
Roger that. Thank you for taking that one forward. Last one that doesn't have an owner. Topology cache has populated hints method can attempt concurrent map access. So we got a race
I've been
condition here.
I've been reviewing this, and there was another one that fixed this one race here. So this person, he worked at Red Hat. He contributed many times, and I think that he's right, but I don't know if it's the same. It's the version in master, and so he has the fix too. He has a pull request to fix that.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's with the latest version or not. I commented there. I think that you should assign to Rob Sculptor.
Yeah, I've been looking at it too. I'll take a look
Okay.
at his PR. But yeah, feel free to assign me to any part of it.
Cool. Sure.
Just to summarize what I was trying to say is, I think that the race is legit, but I don't know if the race is with an old version that was fixed recently 1 month ago.
Roger that. All right, I'll kind of poke around this one as well. That's kind of interesting. All right, so that's kind of like a minor bug that showed up once in CI, and potentially we have a fix for it anyhow. So that's great. That covers everything that didn't have an owner. Do we want to go through some of the ones that do but have been sitting around for a bit, or should we go into the rest of the agenda and maybe come back to those if we have time? I lean towards the second.
Yeah, I think we've got enough time to. Yeah, let's go back to the agenda.
Let's do it. Okay. So this was actually just my follow-up because I feel like this is something that we should continually follow up on Antonio's great topic from last time, and then the post he made to the mailing list about E2E tests, the call out to basically improve testing and coverage and so forth.
I not encourage testing. So what I'm saying is people want to contribute, right? And the way that they are trying to contribute is trying to land a super risky feature in something super stable. What I'm saying is we have a lot of APIs that are under specified in a lot of corners. The service is the most the biggest issue. What I'm trying to say, instead of going for the big picture, why don't you take some particular thing of one API and start to describe it, to document it, to prove different things. And in that process, you add E2E tests, you promote to conformance, so you can grow your knowledge of the code base from there, instead of trying to learn something that's super difficult, that will require a lot of time for review, that is risky. That's my point. Is we have a lot of gaps in the code, in the APIs. You just go there, pick one small feature, try to document it, describe it, add tests, or I don't know. You are going to find bugs for sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate you reiterating that. And I think my point with putting this back on the agenda was making sure we checked in on any actions that we can take as a SIG to better support that direction. I agree with that direction, basically. It's a good way to help hopefully grow people in a way that will be less painful and more edifying. So maybe there are ways in which we can, I don't know, document this kind of philosophy a little bit more. I don't know. What do you think? Are there things we can do to help promote what you're saying?
Session affinity. Describe session affinity, how it has to work. Describe services. There are a lot of issues with 100 comments that are unfinished, and because we move on and nobody follow on there. But I was talking with Tim 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. Session affinity is clearly under-specified. So things like that. Just pick one of the APIs that you know that is not well documented and go deep on that and document it and test it and verify it.
So one of the things that I've thought about but haven't really done anything with, we as a community, we have our API documentation, which is not often very verbose. It's actually often very terse and leaves out a lot of stuff. It doesn't talk about concepts. It doesn't talk about overviews. We have web page-ish content, which is pretty high level. and isn't often updated because it's in a different code base. And, you know, most of us are not tech writers. And so we tend to forget about it. I'll at least speak for myself. Or it's so bad it needs a total top to bottom rewrite, and who has the time for that? And so we don't have a good place in between to write sort of technical docs. Now, Dan started this implementer's guide for kube proxies, right? Which is awesome, but it wasn't clear to me where it goes, where it should live. How do we actually share that information with people? I would like to see us, especially as one of the lower down the stack SIGs who has a lot of surface area, I would like to see us explain more what these things mean. Now, describing session affinity, well, okay, that probably actually belongs in the API docs and the user-facing public docs. But there are other concepts like that implementer's guide. What is internal versus external traffic, right? Like, where do we document that? It's not really related to any one field. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I don't know what the answer is where these things should go. And referencing a GitHub issue that's been closed 4 years ago is also not a good answer.
Yeah, no, I like that energy a lot. Where can we basically have a place that isn't quite API docs or, you know, just the normal web content that we have, where somebody who wants to get deeper into SIG Network can onboard a little bit better, find some guides related to the technology, and not necessarily have to struggle as much to get started, and know a little bit better where they can get started. Because right now, if you try to just go to the issues and look for SIG Network, it's a jungle out there. So
yeah, and
I mean,
frankly, the API docs could be a lot better, right? Like I mentioned internal, external. Like, we actually could write a little paragraph around internal traffic policy and external traffic policy that describes what internal and external mean, right? I know that not every end user goes and reads the API documentation, but written somewhere is better than written nowhere.
Indeed.
I mean, as our SIGs expand underneath SIG Network, like, we're gonna need a common place anyway to put certain stuff, like maybe even, you know, the conformance profiles that Shane's working on and other stuff that Gateway API is kind of spearheaded. Like, we could fairly, with low overhead, have a SIG Network MK Docs website and repo in SIGs that kind of houses some of this stuff.
Tim, I'm gonna have to disagree on the statement that not everybody reads that cluster like traffic policy. Almost every single customer I have dealt with that had a problem with the way that traffic works reference that paragraph or 2 paragraphs that they talk, which are not clear, that they talk about. So most people actually working, trying to get this to work the way they think it should work. So
okay, I mean, that's great to hear, because the API docs are the lowest cost thing to update, right? Like, there's no formatting, there's no markdown, there's no publication of it. Just write the API docs, code gen the rest, and it will happen. And truthfully, if we need help in like explaining concepts better, SIG Docs is willing to help us if we ask.
So we need we potentially need to take action, some kind of like, especially just given how much ground we cover and how much is going on, these kinds of things like docs almost always kind of fall to the wayside. It's just it's a natural matter of impetus for change, right? Like, everything technical is going to get more focus. Maybe there's some room here to come up with some new incentives to improve these areas. I don't know what that would be yet, but that's my first thought, is like incentivizing the area of API docs, certainly. Although I still very much like the energy of like having like onboarding guides and stuff like that for the technology. I think that sounds really good too. Don't need to take up a ton of time with this, but I like the thoughts. And it might just be a good one that I can kind of go async with myself and think about bringing this one up again once I've had some more time to think about it and think about specific actions to take, unless anybody has some specific actions they would like to see taken now. All right. I think if nobody has anything to say on that topic, thank you all for your thoughts. I will follow up on this. Okay. Marquis, do you want to talk about your follow-up for the cost cap? Let's see here.
Well, unfortunately, Marcus is not here, so I will try to cover for him with this part. So, as suggested on these previous meetings about all our activities like QoS cap, DRA, we gone and talk with SIG multi-network. And actually, Marcus did a presentation about QoS classes. Yesterday, Patrick did a presentation about the DRA. We got some feedback, like one is like pretty much like 1 hour old from Peter White. He wrote what he likes for some aspects of DRA, and it might be usable. However, I think yesterday on the meeting, Maisei mentioned some of not challenges, but what how to like if we're using DRA claims for something, how we will be referencing them from services like policy networks and so on. So like bunch of open questions. So discussion is ongoing. We are continuing with SIG multi-network. And we also reviewed the CAP, what SIG multi-network is preparing. We looked at all the 9 use cases or stories, what we have. I don't know if you're interested, I can show like one slide what we think, how it maps in the scenarios, what we think about DRA QoS classes.
Gotcha. So is it mostly just kind of an update that you guys are still thinking about this? Is there anything we can do to help facilitate? Because it sounds like the next step is like soon maybe you'll come back with like, here's what we actually think we want to do now that we've talked about it, or do you need help with anything?
No help at this stage. We just wanted to make an update to this group of people saying what we are continuing with SIG multi-network.
Yeah, we are in discussion on the multi-network. We have it weekly, so I hope we're gonna get it resolved next week with Patrick and the DRA team.
Yeah, I mean, I go to them, so I'm I'm pretty looking forward to the next steps with this, and I appreciate you guys bringing it up. Cool. So that's the status update on that end. Anything else you want to say on that matter, or should we move on, or does anybody have any comments, questions, concerns?
I'm done, so we can continue if no questions.
Cool. I would definitely encourage anyone from this group who's interested. There's a regular multi-network meeting on the SIG calendar, and this is one of the main topics of conversation today, but also as we talked about at the last meeting, or at least the last one I was at, we were talking a lot about like where options that you could add for network interfaces would live and stuff like that. So if these are concepts and ideas that are interesting to you, please do join in that meeting, because that's on the agenda right now. Antonio, enhancement freeze.
Sorry. Yes, it's enhancement freeze is in what day is today? 16. So we still have some weeks, but I have 3 caps that I want to talk. So the first one is the more complex one, the one that I sent an email that is. I was working on these multiple service siders for adding multiple service to dynamically to the clusters, and we have this other cap that is about adding multiple cluster siders to add multiple pod siders to the cluster. And we identified during the review that this collides and it can be confusing for the user. So we have this document with different approaches. I've been discussing in groups, in one-on-ones, in KubeCon, in multiple places, and it seems that it boils down to 2 options right now. That is basically we create a singleton object that allows us to cross-validate the network, or we use a more asynchronous way. So I have to come up with a smaller version, a summary of this big document with these two options, and I hope to get a consensus in the next weeks to be able to move forward with these two steps. That's for this part. If anybody has questions. Okay. So the other is about the cap of the topology-aware hints that now is topology-aware routing. And I was talking with Rob. I'm going to take on this to try to finish it to GA. And what we were talking is the big demand is preferred local, right? People want preferred local. And right now we have one heuristic that is not perfect and sometimes confusing. So what we were discussing is, since one of the options is to leave, one of the goals of the cap is to leave people room to develop their own implementations. So if we can abstract the code in a way with a good interface, and with the cap that is moving the endpoint slice to staging, we can offer the people a new preferred algorithm based on hints with this new interface, and they can use it. So we in Tree we offer a way of implementing the existing algorithm plus preferred zone using topology-aware hints, and we offer the opportunity to people that want to do more complex things to run their own endpoint slice controller with their own topology and make their own plugin. And that's the proposal that I'm drafting for moving this cap to GA.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what you're saying there. I think it's a great idea. I think it's very clear that people want something that we've referred to as prefer local, but just something that is very predictable, and there's no magic involved. And so I'm excited to see this happen. I think using hints, I was not entirely sold on it at first, but I do like the idea of showing both, what we have right now, which is a fairly complex heuristic for hints, and also a very simple heuristic for hints, which this would be. Seems like we're providing a couple in-tree examples of how you can build your own heuristic, and then, leaving it up to the community if they want to develop more out of tree. I think part of this, I'm not sure how much will be in scope for this gap, but there's the related gap that will make it easier to run endpoint slice controller out of tree. Cap, I keep on saying gap, but either way, yeah, I like this direction, and I think a lot of people are going to be excited to see prefer zone option appear here. One detail that I missed, I think what you're saying, Antonio, is this would all be bundled in the same cap, right?
Which thing?
The new prefer zone would just be another heuristic added by the same cap and gated by the same feature gate, etc.
Right. So the goal is to keep it in a way that when they move the reconciler to staging, they move, the topology interface and these two implementations examples.
Yep. That makes sense to me. That also means that when, again, if I'm understanding your proposal correctly, when we introduce prefer zone, it will be introduced at a beta level. Is that the goal?
Okay, I don't remember. So say again. I got lost with the betas.
So right now the topology aware hints is a beta feature gate.
Yeah.
If we consider prefer zone an extension of that feature gate, which I think makes sense, that would mean that we'd be introducing that heuristic at beta.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. I mean,
yeah, okay, yeah.
I think that the criteria to have something GA on this feature is to provide the full functionality. That is, people has an API endpoint to add hints, has a label that do things with hints, and has a reference implementation on how to do things with hints. And I think that is a pretty successful criteria to be EGA, because it's the big demand is preferred zone, but we want to give people flexibility too, right? And I think with this we have both things.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, just want to make sure that was good with everyone. But I'm fully on board with this approach.
Roger that. Not seeing any hands up. Give it a couple of seconds, but then we can move on. Rob, do you want to go ahead and talk about Gateway API?
Yeah, I mean, just
070.
Yeah, this is awfully similar to what I was talking about in the last meeting where we had RC2 ready last time we met. The Monday after that, I think we released 070. Full changelog is there. A couple features are graduating to our standard channel. There's some gaps that made significant progress, including policy, including gateway plus MCS. Yeah, there's a lot going on. So yeah, if you're interested, V070 is out now. We're looking for a pretty short turnaround before we get to V080. And V080 is what we're expecting is just going to be a Gamma focused release. And that will state that Gamma is ready to, and Gamma is our mesh side of things. And that's ready to go to experimental. We have multiple implementations now. Our spec is stabilizing around that. So 080 is probably, I would say, 1 to 2 months away. Less than that. That's the goal, anyways. And I think we're on track for that. And then finally, we're looking at a 1.0 in October. So 1.0 would include GA of gateway class, gateway, and HTTP route. So that's Gateway API. Just one other thing, since we're at an earlier meeting time right now, we're also testing out earlier meeting times for Gateway API. And so again, next week, we're meeting at 8:30 a.m. Pacific, which is half an hour earlier in the day than this meeting is today. And it's on Tuesday. So if you can make it, we are trying to see what the interest level is at this earlier time slot. The last time we tried this, we got pretty good attendance. So we'd love to see if that continues and is sustainable. That's it for me, though.
Woohoo. All right. I have one little thing I remembered that I wanted to talk about. It is just a tiny blurb. We followed up on this before. Several weeks ago, Andrew Stoikos gave us a cool demo about BPFD, which is a tool for loading and managing your BPF programs. And there's an operator for doing it on Kubernetes. We talked a little bit about the possibility that improving the general eBPF plus Kubernetes ecosystem, partially with things like BPFD, but just more in general, because it's kind of a hard ecosystem to work in right now with a lot of rough edges, was something that we would potentially be interested in doing. So there is a hashtag eBPF channel now, which I think I mentioned on a previous meeting, but things have been going pretty well there in terms of like strong signal from the community. We had a meeting, a Zoom a few weeks ago that ended up having a really good turnout. Like I think it was something like 25 people, and it included people like, if you know them, Bill Mulligan, who's the community manager for Celium, and Dan Finneran, who's just well known throughout a variety of development communities. We are doing a follow-up to that, which will be next Monday. If you're interested in the general improvement of eBPF plus the Kubernetes ecosystem, please do join the channel and potentially the meeting. But right now, we're just kind of checking in with people. There's been a strong signal, and we're kind of seeing what we're doing there. We're not really sure exactly what's going to take form yet, but possibly there's room for a working group here. We're just kind of feeling, testing the waters. So So other than that, we could potentially go back and look at old triage issues that are assigned,
Just-
but maybe have
sorry, I
been
just
sitting,
had-
or we could give everybody time back. Go ahead.
I just had a couple questions about that. You mentioned
Sure.
a possible working group. What would the goal or goals of that be?
Like one thing, yeah, that's a great question. One thing that we had considered, so like BPFD has has CRDs for BPF programs, like eBPF program as a CRD. We have considered whether something like that is needed for upstream. Again, we're not sure. We're kind of reaching out to the community and starting to see what people are saying. If that was something that we needed and there were multiple implementations of, then that might be one of the goals. Not for sure thing yet. Security is kind of insane for BPF programs in a Kubernetes context right now. And so one of the goals is potentially trying to help with that, work with like other groups like SIG-Node and stuff like that and SIG Security to try to make these things safer for people. So that might be a target for the working group. And then there's a variety of other things like just general onboarding for people. Like, should we have Kubernetes examples somewhere in KSIGs that would kind of show people how to get started doing that? Probably mostly likely after we solve some of these other problems, that kind of thing. Just to make that ecosystem a little bit easier, because it's hard right now. It's a difficult ecosystem. A bunch of hands went up. Go ahead, glorified sysadmin.
Yeah, do you have a lot of background, by the way? I just want to start with that because I don't want to be pain in the ass if I do.
What's that? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
Yeah, do I have a lot of background noise here?
I wouldn't say a
not?
ton. Your voice is softened for me. I'll turn my volume up a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so Jay and I have been working on, or at least I have been trying to touch myself to the KPNG, and especially the IPv6 stuff. I have encountered the problem that I don't seem to be able to tackle, though I had a discussion with Antonio regarding that, but I still couldn't make it work. So my problem here is that my IPS doesn't support IPv6, and this seems to be quite a large problem. So it's not very popular right now. And Jay and I discussed that it might be a topic that we can bring up at the SIG network meetings. So in general, the approach would be to find a solution, how we can work around that. So we have a workaround right now that we can build the kind image. So we can extend it, alter it, and add whatever we need. Because the internal connectivity is fine, external is a problem. And Jay suggested that we can, if we can think of a solution, how we can do that. We can also write some kind of a guide or some CNCF post or whatever it is for people coming into this, because it's really, to me, it seems a bit of an uncharted territory. I couldn't see a lot of information about the topic, and yeah, I just wanted to bring that up here. So maybe we can work on that, or at least, I don't know, move it forward somehow. So I don't know what you guys think about that. So I would be glad to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, what Antonio said in chat, I kind of need to, I started to try to take a note. I'm not sure I caught the problem. What was the problem?
So the problem is that when I try to run whatever it is, so anything in kind as a local development cluster with IPv6 enabled, everything inside the cluster is fine. So there is interpod connectivity, services are working fine. There is no outer connectivity. So I cannot pull anything from the internet. I cannot pull images. So it might be an issue related to kind, where it might be the better place to rise, but I just wanted to bring it up here. So maybe somebody has a workaround or some setup that's working for them.
Okay. No, look, you need to do NAT 4.6 or NAT 6.4, and okay. So look, go to kind, open an issue, and say, I want, or feature, I want to run kind IPv6 only clusters and reach the internet, whatever, and tag me there. I mean, that's a documentation thing. Right?
All right. Okay. Okay. Cool. That's it then. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, please do follow up there. It'll be helpful. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Bowie.
Yeah, so about the eBPF working group, which SIGs it will be a working group of? And then I know we're very network focused here, but eBPF is used in other places as well.
Yeah, we're very clear on in the group that it is, even though it's a little bit under the umbrella of networking right now, we're not focused entirely on networking. Like the purpose of
I
like
know
the meetings we've had.
security has like a LSM
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
all
it's
of
going to
that.
be a multi-sig thing for sure. But we kind of, what Tim and I had kind of discussed after Andrew's, we talked about in several meetings back, is that we might be able to just kind of umbrella it under us for the moment if we decide that we need one. We still haven't decided that we need one, to be fair. We're still kind of just reaching out to the community and seeing what people are doing, what people need, and where there might be work that needs to be done and people who want to do that work. But if we get there, I was kind of leaning towards we could kind of nestle it under SIG Network for the moment, but we definitely need to be aware that this is not a network only thing.
Okay, got it. Because not to beat on the same drum, it's
No,
like
that's a
you,
fair
you
question.
don't need a working group if it's just within a SIG.
Yeah, it's just a fair question, but yeah, it's not all taking form just yet, and that's why we're reaching out and trying to find more people who are doing these things in production and stuff like that, so that we can help facilitate. It's been some really interesting conversations, and if you want to check out the meeting notes, it's on the SIG Network calendar actually right now. There were quite a few notes from the last meeting. I'm sure there'll be more from the next meeting that had a lot of interesting topics and questions. Like for instance, if we would have a kubelet type thing for loading eBPF programs in a Kubernetes cluster was an unexpectedly interesting question that popped up.
Yeah. Whoa, say again. Sorry.
Go ahead. What?
Say again because
did I cut out?
No, you didn't. The kubelet. Will kubelet ever load eBPF? Probably not, but someone asked.
It was an interesting question. Yeah, it was a very interesting question. Like somebody was like
kind of like WASM support, same sort of concept, but that's why Crustlet was created. So I just wanted to note that I was going to also present to SIGNode and SIG Security next week, SIGNode, and then hopefully SIG Security in a few weeks around BPFD and some of these problems. So hopefully we'll get their insight as well.
Yep, it's not isolated to network at all. There's a lot of us here that are interested. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I'm just, when are these meetings? You mentioned they were on the SIG Network calendar. Has it been more broadly announced or discussed?
They've been kind of just in the eBPF channel. And then I think Andrew and I have just reached out to people we know that are like specifically interested and pulled them in. So if you join the eBPF channel, that's where they've been announced so far. And they're not like official, like we're not recording them. We're kind of just talking to people to get to grassroots to see if there's like room here for this kind of work within Kubernetes SIGs. So.
Cool.
Okay. I hijacked a lot more time with that than I thought I would, but that's good. I'm glad people are like at least thinking about it and interested. We have 10 minutes left. I think we can just give everybody 10 minutes back. Does anybody feel really strongly they want to go over any of the assigned issues, or should we convene?
I'll take the time. Time back.
I'm triple booked this morning, so I will be happy for the 10 minutes.
All right, let's give back the 10 minutes. Thank you everybody for your time.
Thanks.
Andrew, I'm going to read your email soon, I promise.
Sounds good. It's to everyone, so.
I know, and I flagged it and I was like, ooh, this looks like a really juicy one, but I've just been crazy.
Awesome. No worries, no rush. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, everybody. Until next time.